In today's video, what is the ideal body fat percentage? I'm going to give you some examples of different body fat percentages and explain why they may or may not be ideal for your goals. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com. In today's question, we're going to break down body fat levels. What is the ideal body fat? Is this it on the screen right now? Are we looking at the ideal body fat level? Well, a lot of it comes down to your specific goals. And a lot of the questions I get tend to be a generalized question, but they can have a lot of differences. So I'd like to give you some examples today on what I think is ideal for different phases. And today's question comes from right here on my Instagram direct message. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and read you the question, and then we're going to get into it so I can explain to you kind of what I feel are the reasons things are ideal or not. And so the question's right here for you. What do you think the ideal body fat percentage is for an athlete who needs maximum strength and endurance, strong, but without having to haul around any excess fat? Now, I would assume there is a purpose to this. Meaning, you mentioned being strong and having endurance, okay? So something that comes to mind would be like CrossFit, right? Like the CrossFit athletes, at least the ones in the CrossFit games when I watch those documentaries, they have to be strong. Some of the events are graded based on their strength, but they have to have a lot of endurance, right? There's a lot of swimming, a lot of running, a lot of those kind of things. So there's a combination of things. So I think it all comes down to your sport. So as we know, there is a weight associated with success depending on the type of event you're doing, right? So as an athlete, if you look at most swimmers, they are going to be leaner. Why? Well, because they have to have a lot of endurance, and also their weight ratio is going to matter. When you look at somebody like a basketball player, right? If you look at, I don't know how much you guys have been around basketball, but I grew up playing basketball, and the basketball players, even the professionals that you see, if you meet them in person, you would think they are extremely skinny because they're tall and lanky. Now, they're very low body fat, but they also have a lot of muscle, right? They're very densely muscled, but very low body fat. Why? Well, because they have to be able to withstand the rigors of running up and down a basketball court while also still being explosive enough to play, right? And if you think back through history, I'll show you like somebody like David Robinson on the screen right here, who was, I don't think there's ever been a more shredded basketball player in history, right? He was 7 feet tall and had to bang with Shaq. But what is the ideal body fat percentage? I think it comes down to a lot of things. The biggest being our genetic makeup. For each individual person, we're going to have an ideal of how much muscle we carry, how much body fat we can carry. So a lot of it comes down to your sport. Now, if you're like an offensive lineman in football, speed is probably secondary to just pure mass, right? You need to be able to move people, and you need people to not be able to move you. So you're on my channel. I'm assuming that there is some association with bodybuilding, right? Resistance training. Now, things that I've done in the past, like powerlifting and bodybuilding, have kind of different reasons for weights. Now with powerlifting, you want to be able to perform, but you also want to be able to make your weight category, right? So there is a range where you can lift and be very strong, but also you don't want to be so heavy that you're lifting outside of your kind of place that you're the best athlete. And for a lot of reasons, you'll see powerlifters, focusing on their body composition a little bit, trying to find that. So what body fat percentage is ideal? Now I think for most men, I like to be in the 12 to 15% range, and I'm sure I get a little bit higher than that at times, but around that range is when I feel very strong, my recovery is very good, my hormonal balance is very good. Now, if I get heavier than that, my strength will increase, but it's also at the risk of putting on more body fat that I then have to take off when I'm dieting down. So I've tried it before. I've gone up to 240, 250 pounds before, and I'm 6'3", so I carried it well. But the point is, I didn't like it. I didn't feel good at that weight. I feel better at 220, 225. I'm all the way down to 215 now. I need to do an update video for you guys on my body composition. I've lost 15 pounds since I started this transformation challenge. But the point of dieting down for a bodybuilding show, like I like to do, is the least body fat is optimal for being on stage. The less body fat you have, the more visible your muscles become, the more dense you look, despite the fact that you're probably at your worst performance-wise and muscle building-wise. So what is ideal? You have to find what works best for you, okay? Are you trying to be a professional bodybuilder? Well, you're gonna have to go through phases of gaining and losing. And I think this is where a lot is misunderstood. The worst a bodybuilder is at building muscle is when they're closest to their stage weight. The best a bodybuilder is going to be is when they have a little bit more body fat, they're eating very well, but they can still perform in the gym. So when I'm finding out an athlete that I'm working with, I've worked with cyclists, I've worked with powerlifters, I try to find that performance ratio where they're eating well, they're training hard, they're able to recover, and they're happy with how they look and feel. So what is the ideal body fat percentage for what you're doing? I think the best thing to do is look at the professionals in your field, okay? Now you look at the CrossFit athletes and some of them will have abs, some of them won't, but they are what you would consider, I mean, in incredible condition because they have to be, at least the ones in the CrossFit games. Those are the ones I'm familiar with. I'm not familiar with the ones that don't compete in the games. So that's kind of my reference point for that sport. Now, if I'm looking at anybody in any other type of sport, you know, an endurance runner, well, they're going to be low body fat, but they're also going to be low body mass. Why? Because long endurance type cardio is going to have an interference effect on building muscle. And probably just because they spend so much time running, they don't have a lot of time to be in the gym. You look at somebody like an elite level sprinter, well, they are going to be able to have more muscle. The problem is people assume that that type of cardio is what gets them that physique. No, the athletes that you see in the Olympics that are sprinters or Division I sprinters, the reason they're Division I sprinters is because they're genetic anomalies, right? That's not because they sprint. They sprint because they're good at it, right? So there's a little bit of a misconception there, a little bit of a correlation. It's not equal to causation in that regard. But I think if you are looking to have the optimal physique for your body, it comes down to what do you need to perform, okay? I mean, if you want to be a sumo wrestler, you probably need to be 50% body fat or more. And if you want to be a professional ballerina or someone that has to be lean all the time, well, your body fat's going to have to be much lower. So, you know, for me, for men, 12 to 15% is where we're performing really well. We look good and we feel good. For women, probably 18 to 24%. There is just a natural little bit of higher body fat. And I think, you know, as we progress in age, I know I've been able to stay leaner a little bit easier, and I think that's just because I put on more lean body mass through the years, and I think my body mass stays a little bit more consistent. I'm also not chasing the numbers on the scale like I used to. I used to get caught up and think I want to see 210, 220, 230, 240. I thought that correlated to more muscle. Sorry guys and girls, it doesn't. It just correlates to more body fat. All right guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.